Hello, and welcome to this week's segment of Sense of Belonging. This week, we'll be talking about the sense of belonging among Arab-Canadian immigrants. Let's start with the definition of the word belonging. What is it? The word belonging is a noun. Its definition is an affinity for a place or situation. A good example, we finally belong here, or we feel a sense of belonging. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. Think of your home. Home is a pretty safe place, right? But what if bombing started, destroyed your house, destroyed your chance of a decent future? You start to see killings around you and you start to question, is home really that safe? So you move. You go with your family or you go alone to a new country where it's safer, where you have a good shot at a great future, good education, maybe even start a family. That place is Canada. According to a source I found, The Lebanese Diaspora by Dalia Abdelhadi, she interviews an artist named Bassam. He made a contribution to a piece called The Lands Within Me. He says that he had wanted to tell a story, almost a biography. He thinks that all immigrants feel that sense of transience. Sometimes people don't accept the idea of being here permanently. They deny it. And their denial is a form of hope, the hope of having the choice to return. He also goes on to say that his transnational existence causes him to question his identity and belonging in both societies. He says, going back and forth each time, I have to address the question of who I am. It is a very bad feeling, actually, and I can't get used to it. You know what I mean. Each time, I feel myself very divided between the two places. I feel like a child who's been taken from his mother, but who wants to hold on to her dearly. He also says, I came to the result that one can see a lot of harmony having two orientations and belonging to two cultures. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to these people.
The reason we left Lebanon is it was during the war. So we left in 1990. It was just sort of getting towards the end. And we, as Christians, lived in what they used to call Beirut West, which was dominantly in the Muslim community. And even though our neighborhood where we lived, it was mostly majority Christians. And so when Syria went over and went into Beirut, East Beirut, and then took over, this is when we kind of lost hope. We lost hope for a peaceful Lebanon, and we felt that things were going to change for the worst for us being a minority, and we were afraid of backlash, because back then my uncle was in the army, in the Lebanese army that was in East Beirut. So, and back then a lot of people were being kidnapped. So it's to flee the war basically, and the backlash after the war, and this is why we left.
Because the war and the situation back home in Lebanon was bad, and I had no choice but to leave.
Wow, because the situation was very not safe, and no hope, no future, no job. So I immigrated with my parents, actually.
Because I'm a Palestinian Syrian, and I was a stateless Palestinian in Saudi Arabia, so there was no stability. So we had to go find stability somewhere, and that was us coming to Canada.
But what did they think of Canada when they arrived? Did they think it was nice, odd, out of place, beautiful? For sure, it was different. And definitely not easy.
Well, the biggest hardships for me as a 10-year-old was trying to fit in with the other kids. And I remembered we came in November, so I went straight into a school where I think I was the only immigrant in the school, and that was in Orleans. And you know, a kid who you just came from the war, you have a different mentality, different things that you value that other kids don't value. So fitting in was really hard. And I remember sometimes, like, I'd come home just crying, telling my parents, I want to go back to Lebanon, I want to go back to the war. Like, I can't, because kids are cruel, and there's so many things that they can pick on you, the way you dress, because we dressed in a certain way, where here it's like, oh, look, you know, or you're kind of a geek, or so things like that. It was really hard to sort of fit in with the other kids at the beginning.
Language, even that I spoke some French, I felt it's very hard to speaking the language, and everything is strange, everything is new, you don't know anything, so that was hard.
At first it was hard for me as a kid, just because, you know, I'm leaving back home, I'm leaving my friends and everything. But we came to Canada, and it wasn't hard to adapt to it. So
Was there a language barrier?
Actually, no, there was not a language barrier, because I entered Saudi Arabia an international English school, so I already knew English, and my family also knew English, so it was easier.
But what did they feel when they went back for the first time? Were they happy? Were they confused? Or had the country changed so much in the time that they were gone that they didn't recognize their own home?
Well, the thing is, I feel like when we come to Canada and we face so many opportunities, and we face, you know, over here we have a charter, we have rights, we have freedoms. So going back to a country that doesn't, especially Saudi Arabia, because it's completely different, not as many rights and freedoms, you feel a little bit like, okay, maybe I'm not from here, especially Saudi Arabia. Maybe not as much Syria, but Saudi Arabia, I felt like I was a foreigner there, you know? It's something I was waiting for years. So to me, it was very emotional to see the places, the family member that I loved and very close to. I don't know if I feel like I don't belong. There's a lot has changed. It's not as calm and quiet environment. I definitely didn't feel I belong in Lebanon, but I enjoyed just seeing everybody and go back with my memory in the days that I lived there. So it was good.
So I was 15 years old, and things didn't change that much. Cleanup had started, you know, downtown Beirut and this and that. But for me, I loved it. I felt safe again, because I was with my cousins, with my friends, with my family. You know, I visited the school I used to go to, the church I used to go to. So it was a safe, like a safety zone for me going back, and it was really hard leaving. Like, we stayed there, I think, for a good month, and I remember I didn't want to go back, and especially, you know, when you're hitting your teenage years, and back then there was this whole movement of, you know, the Lebanese T-shirts, the Lebanese jerseys, and everything. You just wanna be proud of who you were, and who you are.
When they came back to Canada, how did they feel? Did they feel like they were finally Canadian? Or did they feel still kind of out of place? Let's hear it.
You have to realize that you immigrated to Canada. We're in this is our country now. You keep your values, you keep your roots, but you have to let things go and sort of understand you're Canadian. you're born Lebanese, but you're Canadian. You have to be sort of not just waving the Lebanese flag, because deep down it's in your heart, but you have to wave the Canadian flag to sort of be proud of Canada, of taking us in, giving us an opportunity to have a better life. So you start realizing that at an older age, where you're like, hey, this country is home now. I fit here. You finish university, you start working. So this is where you kind of wake up and you become, I'm proud to be Lebanese, but I'm also very proud to be Canadian, to be here and have to get in the Canadian society and integrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's this things you have to get to a level that you don't really care, because it doesn't matter how long you stay, there's always someone who will treat you as if you're a comer, like you're not true Canadian, and then you feel like you're in between. So you go to Lebanon, you don't belong, and you come here. Like with myself, I feel I belong, but sometimes people around you, they're always going to look at you as a Lebanese. But to be quite honest, I have the attitude I don't care. So you'll always be in between. That's going to be for the rest of your life. But the price you pay is really worth it, the way I live my life now.
And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Just because I never actually felt like I was from Saudi Arabia. I was born in Saudi Arabia. They don't give citizenship. They don't make you feel like you're part of the country. If you're a foreigner, you stay a foreigner. My dad grew up there, and they wouldn't give him citizenship. You know what I mean? So they have a lot of discrimination too. I didn't feel that in Canada. It welcomed us with open hands. It gave us citizenship. It gave us things that our own countries didn't.
Yeah, so you felt right at home.
Yes.
That's
Thank
good.
God.
When I first came, I considered Lebanon was my country, and slowly things changed my mind, and I was totally changed my mind. Canada is my home country.
Well, today the decision is I've decided I call Canada home. It's sad to say, but Lebanon it's more of a tourist destination.
Yeah.
I go visit. I can't see myself living there. Biggest reason is because I'm married and I have kids. I can't imagine my kids living in a place where you don't know when bombs are gonna go off. You don't know when the war's gonna start. You're not single anymore. You have a family that you have to think of. And by far, Canada, one of the greatest countries in the world. Sadly, you forget about Lebanon. You think of Lebanon as, when I go visit the family, visit Lebanon, have fun. So for me, I call Canada home now, and this is where you're sure to have a better life. But yeah, partly of a family. This is what I call home now. Yeah.
As you've heard, everyone is now happy to be in Canada. They consider themselves Lebanese or Palestinian Canadian. Well, it's safe to say, they fit in. These people have made so many new memories, have built their families, and made so many new friends here in Canada. I mean, they've gone back to visit their home country, to see friends, family, but they've also made new memories here in Canada. And who wouldn't? It's a nice place to call home. And that is all I have for
All right.
questions.
So that would be $250, please.